Hey, what is up everybody, Blaze here, and today for you guys in the video of Persona 5X. Inside today's video, guys, we're going to be going over pretty much all the artifacts, exactly how they work here, and pretty much just explaining them all to you guys because one of you guys actually asked me to do this video, and so you know what, I'm here to deliver, and we're going to go ahead and go over this. Now, I've been taking a good look at a lot of these artifacts, and I'm actually starting to know how I would kind of build some of these characters, so at least expect to see build guides coming out very soon. The first one being at least Joker's build guide, and I'm going to be sure to try to get some artifacts to kind of showcase exactly how that could very well work. So if you guys are interested in stuff like that, be sure to sit back, relax, and enjoy the video for the most part. But let's go ahead and dive straight in. Now, of course, going with artifacts are one of the few things that you end up at least going to be unlocking, I think around 35, in which most people should be maybe at the end of the Palace 1 or either just beginning Palace 2 here, in which you're going to start unlocking that type stuff. Now, once you of course get this unlocked, you end up having these sets that you end up going ahead and putting them all on your characters. Now, currently I have at least an offensive one on at least our Joker, which this is actually going to end up getting changed, or if you wanted to use this here, you would mainly only use the 2 set, not the actual full 4 set here, and I'll get to explaining things like that later on here. But let's go ahead and actually just pay attention to what these artifacts are. Now, these artifacts, you're able to of course grind them on the daily if you very so wanted to, in which by doing so you're going to use some stamina and at least actually trying to get these guys. But I do not suggest doing this too early right now, because you don't get really the gold ones, which are the best ones you can get here, until I think 45, and then I think you get 2 or a higher chance of getting 2 at 50. So I would suggest if you wanted to go for artifacts, I mean 45 would be the better choice, but try not to do anything too hard. You can get most of these artifacts in general just from mementos and the palace themselves here, so of course mainly try to focus that instead. But the first one that we're going to be looking at is called Love and Colorful here, which is mainly going to go in the hand for treatment and freeze. Now, the first one here that we're going to be looking at is the Love one, which is for treatment here, and treatment more or less goes after if you are using a I want to say a potion of a sort, or at least your items here, right? So most of those items that you're using for at least those treatment effects or either those regen effects here are going to be increased by 9% for the 2 set effect, and then of course for the 4 set effect here, the treatment effect itself will give you treatment of crisis whenever you're at less than 50% HP and give you a 23% increase in life. So let's say you're lower than 50% here, that character who has that on of course has a little bit of a healing move, or either has a chance to use an item on you. You're actually going ahead and getting more life increase as long as you're at 50% or less HP. Now, these are rough translations of course, seeing that we have done some things on them here, and I will be testing every last one of these guys very soon just to make sure they're fully correct for you guys. But that one's pretty decent if you guys are using like a regen character, or just really going to be utilizing a lot of your potions or like items. I per se won't be using those items too much here, so I mean, like, it's kind of lackluster for me to use it. But of course, treatment as well could most likely benefit the blessed characters because they do heal over time. So if that is mainly going for the blessed characters themselves, then this is actually not that bad, especially if they're for blessed itself. Now, going ahead and looking at the color set here, this is going to be your freeze damage type set here. So for the 2 set, you're going to be mainly getting a 10% increase in freeze damage, with the 4 set being able to give you damage that gives an additional effect of 40% increase. Now, I feel like when it does come to these artifacts in general, you're mainly going to be using the 2 sets themselves instead of just a full-on 4 set. And that's just, I feel like, because there's certain sets that could be useful for other characters here. For example, like, right, we have the freeze set, right? But if we take a character like Mont, it is nice to have that 4 set, or you can do the 2 too. You get the extra freeze damage, and I can come over to the sovereignty one here, which I think was this one again here, and which gives you for the 2 set a attack boost here as well. I feel like that would be more useful instead of using the 4 set here, in which we're probably going to do some damage testing and things like that later on to actually fully get this finalized here. But I definitely feel like this would be better, or like you would end up using maybe the offense gear set, which you guys are probably going to be getting the most, because this is going to be kind of the norm here, in which the offense gear set itself gives you 12% increase in damage, I'm guessing here, which is pretty dang decent as well. But it's going to be kind of interesting to see. But now going over the second ones here, or at least the second group of artifacts here, this is going to be Abundance and Truth. Now, Abundance itself reduces damage here, as you can tell here, and which goes to a 8% reduced damage of received damage, of course. And then the 4 set itself does highlight energy when entering the battle is restored by 25%. Now, I would suggest this to be mainly for your I want to say like the people who really need to hyper carry with their ultimates here. That's what you would use them for, right? You want to keep them a little bit alive. They have to hyper carry at least their ultimates here, and that's where you would use the 4 set. Though I do feel like with this set here, if anything, you would probably pair this with a defense set itself here. And so like you would end up using the Abundance set, and then you would also end up using like maybe the Peace set, which I think was the one at the far end here, being the defensive set as well. Only reason I'm saying something like this is because you do want to go ahead and just make them a tank to death here. And so something like that would probably be interesting to make sure you're reducing that damage as well as just increasing your effects. But with the Peace set, for example, you have that shield effect, which is really going to be interesting for certain characters who have those shields. That would probably be more of something like a Puppet or something who would use the 4 set instead of doing the 2/2 set. But that was just going over the Abundance part of this. We do still have Truth here. Oh, wait a minute. That's the wrong one. We weren't on this one. That one's display. We're over here. But we still do have Truth here, which is going to boost up the nuke damage. Now, core heat damage here is pretty much just nuke. So if you see me say nuke, that's probably why, because this is literally core heat. In which you get a 10% increase here. And then for the 4 set effect here, attack damage when attacking an enemy with the skill here, if the primary target is elemental or higher, 30% of the damage if the main target is elemental or higher. So this can actually be pretty dangerous as a 4 set, but it is kind of situational as well, especially if it's only just the primary elemental as well, or main elemental. So it's going to be kind of interesting to see that you can't have this if it's like a secondary thing. So let's say for example, this is a primary stat because he's only weak to this, but if we're doing secondary or anything like that, we do get, of course, the extra damage that we're looking for, because it's just an elemental, right? It's just always there, but it's not the main element. So this secondary part may not be too good if we're going to go for a 4 set, but of course that's going to come down to us testing this out later on to really figure out if that's worth it. But those 2 sets were of course reduced damage and nuke, so be sure to check them out if you want to go ahead and build those. Now we're going to our 3rd set here, which is going to be Valor and Dispute here. Valor being the one that you end up using for at least reducing physical damage, or at least physical damage in general. And then of course this one has an interesting 4 set effect, which most likely you would end up using this on Ryuji, because for this specifically, your critical strike for 2 turns is going to be 30%. And then you also gain the same effect again after inflicting a critical hit. So if anyone knows, of course, how Ryuji works, right? We want homie to deal as much damage as possible. Now, to do this, of course, you're going to end up having a buffer who's going to help him either increase that set damage as well as help him get that overwhelming type power here, in which being able to hit a critical effect as well would be absolutely amazing, seeing that if you hit that crit strike, you're going to get a lot of damage off. And then of course, by hitting that crit strike, you're able to inflict another critical hit by 30% of a chance, or 2 turns. So that's actually really interesting as well to at least have on him. But I think the Valor set's pretty darn decent and can have some usability depending on who you're using it on. Now going for the next one here, we do have Disputes here, in which with Disputes here, it increases fire damage by 10% increase here. And with the 4 set attack here, you get yourself 15% extra attack power, and attack damage is increased by 15%. Now, this one's very interesting because we have the fire damage part, and then you have this attack damage part. Now, this is more of a 4 set. I don't know if I would per se use this myself. I think it would probably be more of something that I would use in the later on kind of values. I don't know if I really like the 4 set for this one itself, but the 2 set actually isn't all too bad. So I mean, like, you could very well experiment with this as well. But as I was saying earlier, I feel like every character who has a like elemental form, I definitely would say try to at least use the 2 set minimum. Now going into our next one, this is going to be offense and winning, which offense we should all be kind of going ahead and just knowing about this one for the most part, because this is one of them that you're going to get a lot inside of a lot of Mementos dungeons, as well as a lot of palaces in general here. So offense increases 12% of it just damage in general, I think, which is kind of iffy, right? Like this is where this one kind of gets me a little bit weirded out here. But 12% increase here, but for the 4 set, you're able to every 6 turns after entering the combat increase your damage by 10%, stackable up to 3 times. But I'm gonna be honest, right? If it versus things that later on are very strong here, this starts to lose its use, in my opinion, right? The 2 set's pretty decent, but the 4 set is definitely not good, in my opinion. Of course, you guys could probably go off with me about that. I want to see some people debate about this anyways in the comment section, because yeah, this one's kind of iffy. I have it on Joker, it's pretty decent, but I'm definitely going to be replacing it very, very soon, because I'll explain so in our last gear set, because that is actually going to be the one that's going to be revolving Joker the most here. But it's kind of iffy, don't really like it too much. I feel like it can definitely do better. Now going in here with winning here, we do have the Gale damage, which of course this is another like set that you most likely use only the 2 set depending on your damager here. But we have the 10% extra damage increase here, and then with the 4 set effect is a 25% fixed chance per attack phase that you deal 20% additional damage. This is something specifically I would use on I have to remember his name. I gotta remember, Floret. Yes, you would use that on Floret definitely, because they actually would love to have this additional damage with the DLT that they actually do have as well, and it's all just Gale damage. That's something I feel like this is one of the few like situational ones that is really, really good to use on the character. But we do have to experiment as usual with these, but it's pretty not that bad. Now going into our next 2 gear sets, which is going to be Sovereignty and Covert here, or at least Convert here. These 2 are fairly interesting, because this one's going to be the life increase and the other one is attack damage increase, which is the one I really want to look into. Life increase here is going to be more of your, like, of course, people who really use a lot of life for their builds, such as like Soy, in which you get 12% life increase here. And then with the 4 set effect, you use skills to attack as the main goal when the enemy attacks, and it actually gives you 8% additional damage. Now, I feel like if you're using this in general, I don't think you would really be using it for attacking. Maybe in the long run it might be better, but I don't feel like this is a good one to have, just kind of chilling with this. But that's something to be said later on. Now this one, I don't think this increases attack damage. I think this was actually a what's it called, a translation error here, where it should have been at least the Thunder one, because I feel like having 2 offensive damaging ones doesn't match up to me, because as you can see down here is the Blitz attack, right? That is specifically for Zeo type characters. And if we go ahead and look at all the dungeons here, each dungeon that were like, of course, having some sort of primary fire underneath had some form of acknowledging, saying, hey, this will boost that certain fire damage or certain damage, elemental damage itself. But this is the only one that doesn't have this, so I think it's just a translation error. But this one purely caters to the percentage of Zeo. So of course, if you want to go ahead and make sure your lightning users are doing some nice damage here, you would end up using this, getting a 10% increase. And then for the 4 set here, you're able to actually, after attacking, use a blitz attack skill. Their blitz attack skill will actually end up increasing 9% by 3 times of a stack here. So you're getting yourself at least 27% of damage off of these type deals. I think you can really see this when we use Closer's AoE, and that's what they mean by those blitz attacks. Those attacks are going to deal a ton more damage as long as you're using those ones here, and you can really stack up some nice damage off of those characters. So I would utterly say that's pretty dang good for at least a 4 set. Now coming down to our last one here, which is going to be Peace and Interruption immediately here. Peace and Interruption is kind of interesting because both of these guys are pretty decent for the characters that we need here. One of them is actually going to be the defense one, which is peace here, which you get a 20% increase. And then for the 4th set, simple as that, shield effect. Pretty darn good. Definitely say it's absolutely amazing to get a hang of. This is going to be one that you're probably going to be running on Puppet as a navigator, because she does need that defense and you want to boost as much of the shield effect that she gives people. Any character that pretty much is built off defense slash needs to give off the, or at least I want to say, the shields to people, that would be what you would want to do. That would be where you want to go, and I feel like would be the best thing to do here for that. So definitely suggest, if you're going to be going for at least a defensive type build, go ahead and use peace. All right, now for the next one here, we do have the Interruption set here, and this is going to be the one that you want to run on Ren. You want to run this on goddamn Joker. You want to run this on Sophia. Reason being is because primary source is curse damage pretty much itself here, right? Alongside of this here, primary source itself also gives off a debuff that can actually do DOT damage. So of course, if you do want to have that more DOT type deal here, you would go ahead and end up doing this immediately. For primary source here, for the 2nd set, we get a 10% increase. And then for the 4th set here, we get the primary elemental damage dealt to debuff enemies can be increased by 20%. I think the only person who would really benefit for this 4th set here would be more like Ren and Sophia, especially Sophia, because he's able to actually benefit off of having those crazy debuffs on him. So I think that would probably be the better solution if you guys are really going to go for it. But I don't know, these are pretty dang decent. I definitely want to say I could see primary source, and then of course, just if you really want to have Joker dealing that nice damage here, you would use offensive. I'll be doing some damage comparisons between offensive and primary offensive and interruption, or as well as checking out convert, but I'm pretty sure convert is just lightning damage. We'll have to figure that out. But hopefully you guys found this video very interesting and actually helpful here. Once again, I don't advise building sets very early on as a free to play or anything like that. You want to go ahead and only try to get 245 first if you are going to build some sets here, and that's just for the gold chance here as well. But it's up to you guys, it's your account at the end of the day, but I gave the warning. Till then, everybody, hope you guys found it interesting, and make sure to hit that subscribe button, hit that like button, and we're going to be on the road to 2.9K. Till then, everybody, peace out, have a nice day.